Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our fifth episode of our show, Tawhid, Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. Today is a special episode. We're talking about quantum physics and the three principles, which is quite a deep talk. And we have a special guest with us, Marksley. And I got really interested in quantum physics because it's the study of physics of everything really, and the behavior of electrons. And what amazed me is when I've read David Bohm books, which he did an amazing job to kind of show the world that the quantum mechanics and law of relativity are interconnected. The macro and the micro is all interconnected. There is no separation or whatsoever. And what's beautiful about that is just shows us that when like people look for truth, as Sid Banks said, that if someone is in the middle Sahara desert and is looking for truth, he will meet someone that will show him the path. You know, and that's what David Bohm did. He was looking for truth, and then from studying physics, he came across Krishnamurti, who is a monk, I think, and he found his way, his spiritual way. He saw that it's all one. There's a wholeness to life, and nothing is separate. And the beautiful thing about that is that when David Bohm met, I have a hard time pronouncing his name, Krishnamurti. They actually they found that there is a way in which this world works, and if we understand the nature of thoughts and reality and consciousness, we will get closer to this infinite intelligence that in all religions, that all religions point at, and that we all come from. So yeah, I'll give it over to Harry, and then you'll present Mark.
Omar. Yeah, I also listened to David Bohm and was quite impressed with what he was sharing and so on. First, I want to read from my first book, Evolution of Addiction Recovery. For much of his life, Einstein pursued a unified field theory, while Stephen Hawking's dream was to uncover the theory of everything. The way I see it, the unified theory of life they searched for has been uncovered by Sydney Banks. As he declared in his book, The Enlightened Gardener Revisited, mind plus consciousness plus thought equals reality. So basically, quantum mechanics is pointing to oneness, as Omar illustrated. 3P is pointing to oneness. And our personal creation of reality. That's amazing that scientifically they can describe that. I wrote one more thing in my new book, book 2, which isn't published yet, and I'm still writing it. I got 32 chapters done, so I'm getting closer. This was interesting. I tried to describe things in mathematical form. The micro world of quantum physics, which is the subatomic world, and the macro world of Einsteinian physics unite at U. This is oneness. So I'm alluding, this is nobody has said that this Einsteinian and the subatomic quantum come together at mind and thought and consciousness equals reality. Now we've got, because the subject is something that truthfully Omar and I don't know that much about, we've asked Mark Slee, who is a PhD in physics, to be a co-host on the show because we felt he could provide a depth of understanding that might enlighten all of us. And with that small introduction and humble introduction, Mark, you away you go.
No, thank you for that, Harry. You know, Mark. I don't know if I'm going to bring any more enlightenment to this discussion because ultimately, you said it, Harry, the unified theory and the theory of everything points in one direction, which is exactly to Sid Banks. If you did want to know physics and understand physics, can you see my screen?
Yeah. Oh, so simple. I got that. That's too easy. Yeah.
You know, that is just, I'm sure everybody can understand that, but it's all written there. But like that, I put that up just as a joke. Really, the physics, when it comes down to it, is looking at things and the universe, how things are now, how molecules are. If you were to look at a diagram, say, for instance, of, let me see. Oh, I'll bring it up in a second. What we are. And I don't know if I'm sharing my screen there. I'm probably not.
No.
So I'll share my screen. Okay. It's as simple as that. Sid was a great believer in making things simple. We are ultimately the world, everything we see is derived from atoms. And within those atoms, there's molecules. And within, down at the quantum level, we've got low level, we've got ions, and we've got these quantum particles which behave in various very curious manners, very curious ways. But the key thing is that basically, I'm going to stop sharing, everything is one, and that's the oneness. Within the diagram there, when you're looking at down, when you get down to the quantum level, and I did a lot of this when I was a student, the studying of how particles behave at a very subatomic level. One thing that had led me to believe was there can only be one conclusion to this, which is that there is a God. You know, these particles behave in manners that you could just not expect them to.
When Sid, Mark, met with physicists in Florida at an aerodynamic facility, they didn't like the word God or spiritual. So he said, well, what can I say? And they said, energy. He said, oh, okay. So erase God, energy. So
Yeah.
he said that's what they understood. And there was an interest. I told Mark Williams this interesting story. So Sid met with all the top physicists in North America. And he was told by the owner of the bill, or the president of the, who brought these people there, he had to leave. He said, don't say anything, Sid. Don't say anything. And just listen. And when he came back an hour later, Sid was on the board writing. And what he was basically writing about was he was proving that Einstein's theory was actually not correct, because E equals mc squared. C squared is still in the finite world. And the physicists were fascinated by this, and we're exploring this oneness that you were talking about, but from their perspective of it. So are you defining God as sort of the greater intelligence of everything, or the energy of all things?
It's the energy of all things, and it is infinite.
You'll have to get closer to the mic, Mark.
Yeah, the energy of all things, and it is infinite. There's a curious puzzle, which is and a lot of people have a lot of trouble getting their heads around infinity and what infinity is. And I remember in one discussion, Harry.
How come your sound is so quiet?
Is it better now? Yeah? No? Can you hear me?
Yeah, sort of.
So, yeah, and you put up the diagram, the infinity diagram, and there's a curious puzzle around infinity, which is, you know, if I was to ask you, you know, there was a Katrina, you can't hear me, or can't hear anybody.
No, you're for some reason when I talked, you became more muffled.
Right.
Are you on your phone or your laptop now?
I'm on my laptop.
Okay, well, just I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, it's okay. Just leave the meeting and try to come back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we invite is there a thought or a question regarding this, so we can get it sort of rolling from a 3P quantum physics perspective? Go ahead, Katrina.
I've become very interested in the void, the space, the void, and the potential of the void. I've stopped looking at the atoms and stars and things, and I'm becoming much more interested in the void that connects them all, that holds them all, the space.
Well,
and I wondered if you could speak to that.
Let me address that quickly, and then let others as well do that. The void that I think you're talking about is what is mind, what is God, etc. And when I was teaching in Sweden, I was teaching what is mind, and it suddenly came to me, mind is silence, total silence. That is the universality of everything. In that silence, inside, not outside, inside, in that silence, we're one with God, or one with the oneness of life, type of thing. So what you're talking about is extremely wise, because you are pointing yourself in exactly the right direction, where all healing, all answers, all truth reside. And I believe what you're pointing to is what Sid was talking about. So anybody else, please?
Just want to talk about something quickly that I've really loved when I watched a documentary about David Bohm recently, and it's the theory of everything. And in this theory, scientists started to believe that the end of physics was in sight. and they believe it's gonna resolve everything, but it didn't work. It didn't work out, and they felt that something was missing, and this what pushed them to look wider, and at some point they just kept believing what they did. And this is when David Bohm came and tried to see that we should be looking at what's that missing. And when he came up with his theory, the scientists, the orthodoxy scientists, didn't approve of what he was talking about. So that's why he left the US and went to Brazil. Then he went to Bristol in the UK, and he found his own way, and he really did a great job of showing the world that everything that seems separate to us is not separate, and it is part of the whole. There is nothing, something as separation. It's an illusion, and we are all connected on a deeper level, not on what we see in the world of form, on a really quantum level. Like, yeah, I wrote some notes about this. Something that really fascinated me is, you know, like the act of observing inwardly, like some emotions or attitude, it changes it. Like when we observe something, it changes. And that's exactly like when we say that what we think about is brought to life, you know, in the 3P work, and here quantum physics terms that, like, when the act of observing our thinking or our feeling or something, we put our own explanation to that, and it changes the meaning. It changes it doesn't keep it pure. And this is when we get really caught up. Like we make sense of our own creative thinking.
Yeah.
I don't know if it does sense or not.
Go ahead, Mark.
That is a real scientific principle, which is the Heisenberg principle, which you're talking about, which is when you're doing an experiment, the very act of observing something happening changes happens. Now, that does not belong. That does not actually belong in the world of science. That belongs in the world of spirituality. The observer cannot be separate. Yeah, and it's true, and it's true about so many things, and you can relate it. Harry, you were talking about addictions. When you talk about the pain of addiction, when you actually experience it, which I have in the past, and you try to run away from that feeling, rather than sitting back and looking at the pain, or looking at where the pain is actually coming from, it's not the real pain of addiction, it's a pain within your own thoughts. Your thoughts are not simple, your thoughts are not pure. And seeking a very simple technique, it's not technique, she didn't like techniques. A very simple thing I do is just sit in my garden and I think about the world and let my mind empty. And suddenly I'm at peace. I'm at one with the world. And, you know, I look at the stars and gaze at the wonder of this universe that we live in. And I show gratitude. I feel so humbled when I look at the stars and when I look at the sky, and humbled by we have knowledge now, but I'm going to share something now. I wonder if anybody knew this, what I'm going to show you in a diagram, but I just discovered this recently, that this was known 10,000 years before Christ, that the distance between the Earth is 108 times the diameter of the Moon. The distance from the Earth to the Sun is 100 times the diameter of the Sun, and the diameter of the Sun is 108 Earths. And that to me is a mystery. I don't think it's physics. I don't think it's got anything to do with physics. I think it's got something to do with a divine influence out there, which at our level of consciousness, we just can't understand. What we can do though is accept it and realize it as a fact, and just think, gosh, you know, how did those people 10,000 years ago know these things, and we don't talk about them today?
It does show the continuity of the universe, for sure. What you illustrated, and I love the way you brought it into the psychological reality, because the first thing I saw with quantum physics was our thoughts. In fact, there's a piece of ice, and if I have negative thoughts, it affects the ice. The composition of the ice changes relative to if I have positive thoughts towards that composition. And then applying it to us psychologically, that's exactly what I see. People can't stop talking about their addiction. So the ice, except it's inside them, that composition physically is changing biochemically, etc. Alberto has something he would like to share.
Well, sorry, I was late, but when I was hearing that the observer affects the experiment and the change, you don't need an observer. Everything is changing. The illusion is that nothing changes, that something doesn't change. A piece of ice in 5 minutes will be water, and in another 10 minutes could be steam. A plant could be a solid fact at the moment, but just wait 10 weeks and it will be gone. So everything is changing, and the thoughts are the same, they are continuously changing. You observe them or not. It's just a matter of time. It's very relative. A piece of stone is changing. And you see that with a microscope, a quantum microscope, you see just movement all the time, with the space or without the space. So what the illusion is, the illusion is just that something doesn't change. That's psychologically the most clear thing, is that a thought or a habit doesn't change. Actually, our brain, our neurons have to continuously work towards perpetuating a thought. Otherwise, it dies. You have to recreate it all the time. So it's dying all the time, every half second. An electron, a neutron, and an electron, a proton is changing, and it's dying every, I don't know, millionth of seconds. So it's something that is created all the time. It's changing all the time. The real illusion is that something is constant, that something is fixed. Nothing, not even thoughts, not even energy is constant. It's something changing all the time.
Are you talking about moment? Oh, go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Alberto, is that your name? Alberto, yeah. When I said that the act of observing something changes it, is when, like, the link I saw it in the 3P words, that when we see a particular thought, like a notice, or like just focus on that thought in our mind and we give it life, and it could change our mood. It could make us feel worse. And instead of that, just seeing the illusion of it, as you said, Alberto, is what makes us free, because that's truth. Like everything is constant change. And the only thing that doesn't change is this infinite intelligence. It's always there, constant, doesn't vary no matter what. That's why we talk about the three principles, because they don't change. Yeah, just wanted to mention that.
Yes,
even
the observer is changing. So the part of the quantum physics is that you cannot be sure that what you're observing exists already, and even the observer that is observing that doesn't exist anymore. So it is a mathematical approximation of reality, but the real conclusion is the reality doesn't exist, or it does exist in a way that you can never be sure of the reality and of the observer. Even if you just become more accurate, who is the observer?
The observer.
Or what is the observer?
Yeah, sorry to cut you here.
It's something that is changing all the time. You don't know.
Yeah, I've heard in a documentary that I watched about David Bohm that the observant and the observer are one. You know, we are creating that.
The observer is the observed, is the quote.
The observer. Yeah, the observer is the observed. And for me, this means that we are making it up, you know, with the use of our thoughts, you know, making meaning of stuff and giving this meaning to this thought and that meaning to that thought, and speaking about its detrimental effect to our health if it's a negative thought, if we keep, you know, believing the illusion that's this thought could harm us and is separate from us and could make me feel what my thought is telling me that I feel. Like, for example, I feel the stress from my boss. My boss is giving me stress, so he is giving me stress. The stress is not coming from the boss, it's coming from my thinking at that moment about my boss. And as you said, Alberto, everything is changing, and if we see that we are only feeling our thinking at that specific moment about our boss, I mean, we would notice that we have a lot of friends afterward, and we don't feel stressed and we feel different. Yeah.
I disagree with one thing. Not everything is changing. Everything in the world of recognition is changing. In the vacuum that Christina, whatever, is talking about, that's constant. So the spiritual world, or the world inside, the three principles are constant principles. And what we do with them is ever changing.
What I see about the void, I think physicists have actually looked at the void and seen that it crackles almost with potential. Particles of matter and antimatter pop into existence and then pop out of existence within the void. And I see that I'm not quite sure how I haven't reached a total conclusion, but I'm not sure whether thought is an energy or whether thought exists within that void. But when we resist it, we're interacting with that energy and we're affecting that flow. That's part of what I see. I'm sorry, I've lost my thread. So I hope that was interesting, but I've lost my thread at the moment. Sorry.
Katrina, I just want to read this thing that David Bowen sort of said, which you sort of explained something to me. Consciousness seen as a coherent whole of unfolding and enfolding. It sounded like what you were talking about.
I've had painkillers at the moment and my brain's quite fuzzy, so my explanations are getting a bit bobbled. What I will do, I'll try and post into the thread something I recorded about this a couple of weeks ago. But maybe I've only just come to this group and it's lovely to be here. So maybe I'll come back to it in another episode when I'm feeling a bit clearer.
Okay, well, this is a very, in many ways, tough subject for us to deal with, because it's awful hard to make absolute conclusions about anything in a conceptual way.
But it's so fun to explore.
That's the hope. That's the hope. Beautifully said. That's the hope. It is fun to explore. It's fun to go into the unknown. It's fun to examine. And like one of the things one of the things that came to me while Mark and Alberto and Omar were talking, why would Sid keep saying, don't talk about your problems, of what you're creating with your thoughts. Go to the void, just to use, for the healing before the form. And there you'll find healing. Now, that's all I teach in addiction or anxiety or whatever it is talking about the problem and the form. You could talk about that forever in our minds. And as Alberta says, it's ever changing, ever evolving. But the other, which is unknown, which I can't define, that's where the person experiences the insight that jumps a level of consciousness that changes their world forever. Because it's happened to me and it's happened to all of us on this show. I find that is quantum physics. Where does sanity be seen? And in the ever-changing, we get pieces, subatomic, to what is that word? Ions, Mark? What was that word you used? Mark.
Well, there's ions, photons, neutrons, and lots of different quantum particles as well, with neutrinos, strange names.
It seems like they keep bringing it down to smaller and smaller substances, or whatever I don't know what you want to call it, smaller and small. And they always, every 2 years, they come up with a new name of something that's there to describe something even more subatomic.
If you look at the CERN experiments in Switzerland and France, they've got a huge toroidal apparatus, and that's designed to produce these particles. The neutrinos, which they expect will exceed the speed of light. The speed of light is not a constant. It can be exceeded.
And that's what Sid saw. That's what Sid saw when he was talking to the physicists in Florida. It's interesting. Mark Williams, you have something to say? Can you unmute him, Omar? You're muted, Mark. Technological wizard, Mark Williams is. Can you unmute
Just
him?
send you the yeah, just send him the request
Oh,
to.
he's got it. He's got it.
I got it. Okay, good. I've got an old iPad here. I'll blame it on the technology. Well, I'm listening to you guys, and Omar, I think you're right on that it's beyond the even quantum physics. I saw the recent couple of episodes with Professor Jim Al-Khalili from England, and he's a physicist, and he goes right through the quantum, all the aspects of quantum physics and quantum tunneling and certain particles going right through seemingly solid walls and so forth with the photons or protons, and other particles can't get through because they're too big, or, you know, we're getting right into all sorts of details of, you know, what Einstein was trying to prove, which is now disproved. And quantum physics even is still on a physical level. It's still on a form level. And so is our talk about the void. I think we're getting mixed up that there's a space in which all of this form is taking place. That's not the point. You know, the space is still form. We're talking about another dimension of state of mind, another dimension of consciousness, a deeper consciousness that is the connection with the divine intelligence or universal intelligence that's behind all these funny little things that the quantum are discovering. These are just perception, evidence that there is something more going on, but the answers are not in there because it's still in form. Sid said something one time about the physicist, or talking to physicists, or talking to somebody about, you know, is electrical energy the energy that you're talking about, you know, electricity? And he said, no, this is not about the movement of atoms and protons and what have you, or any division of them, or any void, or any black hole, or anything in the whole universe. It's a dimension beyond that. And when you're lucky enough, and usually the route to it, I think, is through gratitude and through suspension of your own beliefs, and, you know, accepting that it's a mysterious life that we're given in this physical reality, but it comes from a divine intelligence. It comes from something beyond anything in this reality. So.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I
Mark.
love that.
Beautiful.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. Even for in the documentary about David Bohm, David said something that really blew me away about that. That he was looking for happiness and making money through science, you know. And at the end, he said, no matter how far science went, it wouldn't make mankind happy. And for me, it's about the word of form, you know. The word of form cannot make us happy. It looks like it can. It has this ability to give us what we are looking for, a better experience of life, feelings, happiness, whatever. But we forget to look upside, to look in the mirror, or to turn within ourselves to look for all those feelings we're looking for outside. And that's what came to mind when David Bohm said this in one of the conferences. It's all within. It's all within us. It never leaves us. It's our birthright. All these feelings we're looking for outside of us. And it's such a blessing and beautiful to know this. It's so beautiful and hopeful to know this for mankind.
Go ahead, Katrina.
Does anyone got, yeah, Katrina,
Can I
please unmute yourself.
Can I share with you something I saw about 4 o'clock this morning? I was awake and in pain, and I was exploring the universe. And something I saw was that when we are in the formless, we are independent of space, of time, of gravity, of the speed of light. None of those things affect us because we are formless. And we are infinitely connected. There is only one.
There's a sense of peace when you enter this oneness that you're expressing, or I experience a sense of peace, trust, faith, beauty, and the words that Sid used, wisdom and truth.
Yes, yes. And it came to me with Mark, he was saying about the speed of light. Well, the speed of light is obviously affected by gravity, and hence light gets sucked into black holes. But in the formless, we are not subject to gravity. So therefore we are not subject to time. Time is an illusion.
That sounds right to me.
And every
That's
time
all
we
I can
feel
say. Sounds right.
anxious, every time we feel anxious or urgent or angry, there is usually an element of time in that. We're future planning, we're looking back at the past, we're worrying about, is this going to ever end, or how long is this going to go on for? And none of it's real. It's an illusion, because in that space of the formless, we are not subject to space, time, gravity, speed of light, any of it.
Right on.
Go ahead, Alberto.
I'm going to be a little bit difficult, but when you say that all the advances of sciences is not going to make monks happier, well, it's not going to make an apple happier or a stone happier, but it will be the same principle. And there's something behind for them as well.
Yeah, Alberto,
So,
you're breaking in and out a little.
All this quantum physics and all these things. Yeah, all this quantum physics is getting my intellect lost. The only difference between an apple and me is that I am centered here. This form called Alberto is centered here. I cannot be centered in an apples. So the only experience that I can have, this mystery, is from my center, which might be formless, it might be formed. I don't know what it is. It's a mystery, really. And it might be changing all the time, but I can only talk from my center. I cannot talk from the center of an apple, and I guess an apple cannot talk from the center of an apple. But it will be the same laws and the same influence and the same quantum physics and the same happiness for an apple. So at the end, sometimes the talk about forms and quantum physics, it doesn't matter how far you are, how far the void or any dimension, there's still a form, there's still a thought. It's completely meaningless unless it is coming from the center of myself, which quantum-wise, the center of myself is the same center than the apple and the same center than the stone and the center of the universe. But that's again an elucubration, but I can only talk from myself, really, and the thoughts that come from me and the feelings that come from me or through me or whatever it is, illusion or not illusion, it is a reality for me. We are brothers in illusions, and I am brother in illusions with the apple and with the stone. The illusions are the great reality, really, because if everything is illusion, and we're not talking about anything, it's nothing talking about nothing, which doesn't make sense because we are here talking about something. So we are brothers in illusions, we are brothers in thoughts, brothers and sisters in thoughts, we are brothers and sisters in believing the thoughts, sometimes too much, sometimes too little, and that's the fact that makes us human or apples or stones or whatever, but that can only be experiences from our illusion of being ourselves, ego. So that illusion of being ego is sacred, really. Whatever that is a mystery, and denying it into the void, that can have a sense of the void, that there is something else than the ego, but the ego is there, or whatever center I have as myself. That's my...
What if it is part of the void?
Doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
To me.
It doesn't.
Not to me.
Yeah. It doesn't for anyone really. It's in other words, you're talking in other, like using other terms. I will use my terms that hopefully you will get. I experience life through my thinking, you know,
Yeah.
and
Consciousness.
and when I say we experience life through thought, this power of thought that generates thought, and this power of thought is what we share, all of us. It's what connects us. And your meaning of an apple is different than my meaning of an apple, and this is where we are different. This is where are our differences, really. Because if I ask you to think of a dog, your dog will be different than my dog. But still, this power of thought that I use to create this dog is the same that you use to create your dog. And that's what connects us. So this void that I heard you talking about, for me, it's not separate from me. We are part of everything. And everything is part of us. We are not a drop in the ocean. We are the whole ocean in a drop. In this sense.
Well, it is true, but it's still a hypothesis. Still a hypothesis.
I'm not sure it's a hypothesis. There is a fact somewhere in this whole thing.
Beautiful hypothesis. The best.
You have something to say, Mark?
Sure. Am I unmuted?
Unfortunately, yes. Go ahead. sorry. Bad, terrible.
Well, you know, I think that we're all here to learn what our connection is with the universal intelligence, which we think is going to be achieved through an intellectual understanding. And we tend to give too much importance to our own opinions about things, and we all make an incredible number of mistakes and bumble our ways through life. And if we're lucky enough, you know, sooner than later, we come to a point where we've had enough of that. And I'll move forward quickly, but I think there comes a point when you've had enough of that and you start seeing clearly that people can change tremendously. One little inkling of this feeling and this realization of what we really are can take somebody out of addiction and alcoholism. I saw it myself in St. Paul, Minnesota at a conference. And I was just astounded that this couple had come off the streets and were incredibly poised, confident people. You know, you could just feel it. And I think you have to start getting out of your own self-importance and your own head and start seeing things with more appreciation that we're all on this journey, and see the beauty of it, and start seeing I really think it's through appreciation of what we've been given, this power and the beauty and the ability of it to change people's lives and for us to reconnect. And the whole world is so lost in their head. Everybody has an invested interest in their opinion, and way too much opinion and way too much analyzing and intellectualizing and trying to find it in a microscope, and trying to through therapies or techniques or all these things that are outside, and all we have to do is calm down and start and reconnect. And for me, I was so in such a state of appreciation and of the beauty of this, that it just a gift. I received a gift of this shift into another dimension, another state of mind, I think you would describe it as, where you're just purely connected to this energy. You can't believe it. You said, you would say to yourself, I never even knew this existed. That it's, wow, it's just a whole other dimension. And then you feel an incredible feeling. You start getting insights about how absolutely taken care of we are in life if we only let ourselves, that life guides us, that we don't have to be so serious, that we don't have to care so much in the best sense of the word. We don't have to constantly care and try to make our reality better. All we have to do is accept, feel this feeling of love and connection. And then you see how I think consciousness, pure consciousness and pure thought are all part of that same realization of mind, of pure energy, because you wouldn't be experiencing that pure energy without being conscious of it or having a wonderful thought of it. But then you see how you then use consciousness and use thought any way you like in life. You can use it in a personal way or in an analytical way when it's appropriate. But you have this, where your source is. So I think we're all looking for the source, and it's so simple. The oneness, that is the oneness. And now more and more people like Zach Bush and Bohm or Bell, Bell, who proved that we're going beyond Einstein and beyond the square of the speed of light. We know there's more to that, and we know that there's more to these particles bumping around and doing strange things. But it's coming from the divine. I think a whole different spiritual energy before the energy that we know. Before atomic energy, there's a spiritual energy. And Sid always said that. It's a completely different energy.
It's interesting hearing you talk, Mark. First of all, I totally agree with everything you said, everything. But one of the things that I'm seeing with quantum physics is it's giving, like, I've known Mark for a long time, but I've never seen him express something so well. There's a language in quantum physics that allows him to express the creativity of what he has experienced in his insight. So there is a spiritual connection to broadening your mind in a certain way. I once read a book called The Soul of a Machine. And these guys were given the job of creating a better computer. And they said it got really freaky because they'd see a tree and all they would see is code. What created that tree? So part of the growth of mankind's level of consciousness is coming up with images, metaphors, concepts that we can talk about. And that seems to help certain people Mark obviously has quite a strong scientific mind, much stronger than my own, to be honest. And within that scientific mind, he's now found expression. My co-host in Addiction, Alcoholism, and 3 Principles said the same thing about the 3 principles. He said, he was addicted, heavily addicted to alcohol, And in 1 second, he had this huge spiritual insight, and all aspects of the habit dropped away. Then 6 months later, he came to the 3 principles, and he says, oh, there's a language that expresses what I experienced. And that allowed him to grow even more. So it almost seems like quantum physics and 3P are languages that allow us to express the unexpressible. And for some people, it will be done scientifically, some people romantically, some people through the 3 principles. We do know they're pure truths.
I think the scientific person certainly has their application. You know, they're explaining how phenomena work on this level, and these strange patterns that quantum is describing. But it's never going to lead to the spiritual. It's describing what we see in the form, and you know, the intelligence involved in there, but it's never going to lead us to, we have to go jump beyond that, Harry.
I agree, we have to jump beyond it, Mark, but I don't agree that it will never lead you to the spiritual, because people
it'll lead you to the doorstep, but you still have to go.
Yeah,
you still have,
in the end, that is 100% correct, but it will take you to the doorstep. That's a long way, Mark. It's better to be at the doorstep than before the doorstep.
If I may say something, because you use that word fact, and David Bohm was mentioned as well, and he used to go to the beyond the sources of the words and what they mean, and in fact described was as manufactured. So the facts that we talk about, they are manufactured. So I would agree that the unlimited or the spiritual can be manufactured by us, but we will never be able to manufacture it completely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. That makes sense, at least to me.
Does, and
Since we cannot really...
Omar, can I just say a very bad timekeeping? I do have to leave, but I've learned so much from listening to people. And one thing when I was listening to Mark was the 2 things that came to my mind were humility and gratitude. You know, and that is what I live with every day, and that is what 3 principles has brought me. And I'm so grateful that I've been on this meeting tonight. And sorry that I have to leave you so early, but I do have to go.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you for being a special guest in this amazing episode.
It was an honor. You have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
Bye.
It's amazing how an human interaction changes the quality of the feeling in the moment.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I just want to say something about what Rui was saying. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. But we cannot really conceive or know this infinite intelligence with our thinking. We just can't. We just don't have this ability to do that. But what we could do, we could feel. That's why I love when Sid Banks says that if you're listening to my tape on your car and then you have a good feeling, just take the tape off and throw it out of the window and stay with that feeling, because that's what you're looking for. That feeling will guide you. And when he's saying that, he's talking basically about our, that feeling that we all share, that feeling that is our birthright, that sense of peace and happiness without associating it with, you know, our contaminated thinking or the illusionary world we live in. And that's what we are looking for. That's what we are looking for. We are looking for ourselves, really, because that feeling is who we truly are, is our nature. Does anyone
Katrina
want to
has
share
something to add.
Sure,
Yes,
Katrina.
it was in relation to what Mark, what everybody's saying, is that I can see that the maths and the analysis, whilst it's breaking things down and separating, it's part of the journey to get to the simplified point, and it's the joyful exploration. You're following that joyful feeling, but ultimately we keep coming back to something that's very simple. Even with the equations, it all gets very complicated and then it becomes simple again, and it's part of what the journey is about when you're following the joy, to me. And to me, that's where what everybody's saying, particularly Mark, and what you were just saying, Omar, is coming from. And Alberto as well. I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but that's what I just saw.
Yes.
That's what I see in it too, Katrina, and this whole thing. And that is just following that joy, following that incredible sense of expansion and peace. And that I know now, I think the biggest help for me was just, I understand now what feelings of stress are. I know what they mean. That has nothing to do with what's going on. To me, it's just a reminder that, you know, it's like a tap on the shoulder saying, oh, wait, you think you're separate again. Oh, wait, you think you're not connected to the source. Oh, hold on. You're actually believing you're not being lived. You think you're actually doing stuff. How funny that you think you're doing stuff. And that's where I get tripped up. And so now when I feel like overwhelmed or there's too much to do or there's too much stress, I'm very quickly taken back to that space of just expanded joy that just says, remember, you're being lived. You can relax. And when you take your hands off the wheel, you're going to be lived. And one of the ways I put it in a class I was running last Friday was one of the ladies who was in it, who's very new to this, kept saying, we just need to learn to let go of the wheel. We need to learn to let go. And I said, what a funny concept that is, because I don't believe that's possible. I don't think it's your job to let go. I think you are let go when you see something. And I said, imagine we have Target. That's a big store here in the United States. I don't know if you have that in Canada or the UK, but we have Target. And in Target, the little kids have shopping carts that are little race cars. And you put your little toddler in the race car and they have a steering wheel, and then the mom actually pushes the cart. I said, when we say we need to let go, it's like the little 2-year-old saying, I wish I could let go of the wheel. My mom could then control the cart. But as long as I'm holding the wheel, I'm controlling the cart. And that's sort of what we're saying when we say, we need to let go. We need to surrender. It's all about letting go. Life doesn't give a shit. You can let go, you can hold on, you can turn the wheel however you want. When you get it, life is living you. Hold the steering wheel, let the steering wheel go. It makes no difference other than your experience of life will be so much better once your hands are released from the wheel. But I don't think it's our doing. I think we're lived in that too. I don't think it's our choice to do that. I think we are surrendered and we are let go. And in that space, oh my gosh, it's like the possibilities are just endless. I just launched a new business in July, and in June, I never would have considered launching a business. It wasn't even in my thought process. But one day, I just found myself writing a business plan. Like that couldn't have been me. It had to have been life living me. And so it just goes back to what everyone was saying, is it's that you know it, and you can't put words to it. And I'm looking at who's on here, not to be crude, because this is a crude way to put it, but it's the way I put it to this beautiful group of women I'm working with on Fridays. And if you're a man, I'm sorry, but it's like trying to put the words of a female orgasm. Like you can't, like if someone said, how do you know? Well, there aren't words. I'm sorry. You just know when you know. If you're a woman, I know that's crude, but it's like that. You just, you know, and then it is just like your life just is never your own again. And when your life,
I think I just had an insight.
Oh, see?
Well, thank you.
Anyway, sorry that took too long, but it's just about that beautiful feeling.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. That was so beautiful. I mean, yeah, I had an insight for sure from what you just shared. And Mark as well. Hey, Mark.
But even
so, yeah, do you want to say something, Mark?
I was just going to say that, you have that insight, and you're thrilled, and it lasts for a day or 5 weeks or whatever, and then you gradually it's very easy to get caught up in judging again, and even when you've had such an insight. So I think after they call it maybe an enlightening experience, but not to the same extent as Sid, but it's an enlightenment, of your understanding of what life really is. And you always know it's there, but you're still experiencing life, and it's very easy to get caught up in judging and concepts and expectations, wishing you had more in some way. And so you're still learning, and you have dips, and it's not all roses and
Oh, I agree 100%. You still go, you're still living the human experience.
Yeah, that's the human experience. It's about forgetting, as I always say. And the spiritual experience is about remembering. When the ego collapses, this is the moment when we see through the illusion we've created or we've been suffering. And once we see that, oh my God, I was in the night. I was living in a nightmare. Thanks God, I woke up again, and I'm present. I'm relieved. I'm back to myself. Anyway, I think we've reached the end of this talk. Does anyone want to say anything before we end this?
Nice to meet you all. It's my first day here. And I was eating dinner because I'm in Italy. Well, I guess we're all somewhere around here, right? Or not? Omar is.
Yeah. Good to see you, Loretta. Thank you for coming.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
yeah.
I just say how wonderful this group is and how much I've enjoyed being here with you all.
Thank you. I did too.
Is this an
Harry, do you
actual
want to say?
group? Like, is this a group that, I just
Yeah.
Okay.
I want
So it is
to
a
share
group,
the
okay.
details with everyone. So the group is Tawhid, TAWHID, which is an Arabic word for unity or spiritual unity. So Tawhid, spiritual unity of the three principles. That's the name of the group and
Mark,
of
could
our
you-
show and YouTube channel. I will write it down in the chat box.
Brilliant.
For everyone. And yeah, do you want to say anything else, Harry, before we end this episode?
it brings, what is Tawhid is spiritual unity. And the group is developing its own identity, its own, but in all aspects, it will always cover the spiritual and the psychological reality that we live in as Muslims and non-Muslims. We're trying to make it have that flavor. But what we've seen is, because we're introducing this topic as was a interesting choice by Omar, by the way, not by me, and it shows we want to introduce a fresh feeling in terms of how three principles are talked about. And we want to hear people like Mark Williams and Alberto and Katrina and Mark Sleep. Yeah. Because they're bringing a freshness. And Missy, you two, beautiful call. It brings a wisdom that comes from a fresh perspective. And, you know, for me to listen to Mark Williams, because I'm an old friend of his, talk the way he talked today, I've never heard him share at that depth. It changes my reality. And so we're here for a unique experience, period, you know, and we use a form to create it and so on. And we really appreciate all of you who came on. It's really touches us. And so from my heart, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Alberto, Mark, Katrina, on all of you, Miss. Thank you for coming on and making this hour and a half. And I will make this just out of thing. We're now having the webinar goes to our YouTube channel, and I'm going to create a podcast out of this, which some will be edited out. Like example, when Mark couldn't find the mute button, that will be disappear.
Maybe you should make the orgasm story disappear too.
Well, you know, Missy, first of all, that took a lot of courage, but the answer is, even though it's a sexual image, which is no doubt about it, pretty powerful. You know, I don't know if I want to get it out of there, to be honest. Like, I mean, in terms of impact,
I had an insight, Harry, so we will keep that.
Yeah, and Missy, you had the attention of every guy in the room. So, excuse me, but if you want me to take it out, I will.
No, I was joking.
Okay. I would rather leave it in because it's so unique, the metaphor, and every man and woman can identify with that. That's beautiful, and so on. So no rules, and maybe wrap up with the final. Thank you. Whatever, you're the voice.
you just spoiled it, Harry. Well,
okay.
Thank you everyone for coming. It was a real pleasure to see new faces and familiar faces. This was absolutely amazing, for me at least. And if you wanna watch our previous episodes, it's in I just shared in the chat box the name of our group, Tawhid, Spiritual Unity of the Three Principles. If you wanna contact me or contact Harry, just email me, omar3pcoaching@gmail.com. And your Gmail, Harry, could you share that with them?
Sorry?
What's your Gmail. Could you share your Gmail with them?
Share, sorry, what is it, Mark?
Your Gmail.
Oh yeah, they can just Google me and my company and so on and have that.
Yeah,
but
he's a famous guy.
So there's a Facebook group, there's a YouTube channel, and there's now the podcast locations, etc. Which we released our first podcast yesterday. So
yeah. So in 2 weeks' time, we've got an upcoming show about the oneness of addiction recovery with the special guest.
We're going to make
Greg Suki.
Yeah, and then hopefully we're going to bring a Muslim person who works in addiction as well, to make it an alcoholic and addiction month type of thing. But it's all the same. It's all what we just talked about, honestly, guys. I work in addiction. It's no different than when a client says I'm very shy in a business environment. It's just same answer. And we're all coming to a place of peace with that. But the addiction was there. That was what we had, and then we met with Mamoun, who's I guess the lead Muslim 3P expert in the world, and he came up with this other guy who's also doing that. So so what we're trying to do is, boy, if you have an idea that you would like us to talk about, we'd love to hear from you.
Please share this with us, yeah. And then the main focus of this group is to keep it diverse, because we need this, especially in the 3P community. From all religions, no exceptions, from all backgrounds, from all skin colors, no exceptions, we're all one in this game of life. And saying that, I would love to thank you all for joining us today here, and hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks to you. Bye-bye.
Big love. Bye.